To our top story this hour. It is 7 minutes past 9. You are listening to Africa World Hour. So we turn now to the Mediterranean seas, where the Global Sumud Flotilla is pressing on despite some of its most perilous encounters yet. We've heard that in an unprecedented decision, Spain and Italy have decided to send ships to assist the Gaza flotilla in a sign of increased pro-Palestinian sentiment in Europe. We saw those statements coming out of European country leaders at the UN General Assembly standing behind the Palestinian people. Now, Italy and Spain have dispatched naval vessels to assist the Global Sumud Flotilla. Earlier on, we heard statements of how it's faced numerous attacks, including a drone attack, drone surveillance and attacks and explosions. We heard from Nkosi Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela, who is aboard the boat, and this is what he had to say.
This briefing underscores the level of desperation of the Zionist entity to stop our efforts to end the genocide and bring the much-needed humanitarian aid to the starving masses of Gaza. Let us be under no illusion that the Zionist entity that has for the past 7 decades acted with impunity in violation of international law and all human rights conventions are now intimidating us with intensified violence. Their response to previous flotilla initiatives are indicative of what harassment and violence we can expect from them. We were not unaware of apartheid Israel's propensity for violence and would be surprised if indeed they choose a different response. These acts are acts of desperation, not unlike what we witnessed during the last decade of apartheid South Africa. This Global Sumud Flotilla comes at a time when some of Western regimes have started to backtrack on their shameless support for apartheid Israel. Yet, none of them are doing anything to stop the genocide, forced mass starvation, and forced displacement of millions of people in Gaza. We call on governments, NGOs, CBOs, labor formations, faith-based organizations, as well as human rights agencies and people from all walks of life to bring pressure to bear on the Zionist entity to stop its violent attacks and the threats of attacks on the Global Sumud Flotilla. We assure our families and friends of the Global Sumud Flotilla participants that we will do all in our power to protect them even under difficult circumstances. We will not stop our efforts as the GSF until the genocide stops. Humanitarian aid flows freely and the Palestinian people are free. Thank you.
And that is what Nkosi Mandela, who is part of the Global Sumud Flotilla, had to say. They held an emergency press briefing earlier on to speak about what is happening. Well, let's get the point of view now to further shed light on what exactly is going on and how it impacts the mission. We are on the line now to one of the organizers, part of the organizing committee of the Global Sumud Flotilla. We are speaking to Basheera Soomar, and who is also on, I'm not sure if it's the same boat because I believe there are about 50 vessels or more. Basheera, a very good evening to you, and thank you for taking the time to speak to us. I know it's perilous times and perilous time to even talk to the media.
Hi, TP. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I think the media is a key factor that keeps us safe and that allows us to proceed with our mission. So thank you for making the time for this.
So you held a press briefing earlier on. We played snippets of what Nkosi Mandela has to say, but just give us a sense of the general sentiment, because we understand that Israel, even though the government has not commented on the attacks, but it has upped the ante on the rhetoric, particularly on what the Global Sumud Flotilla is, linking it to Palestinian terrorism.
Yes. So I mean, some of what Israel and the Zionist allies are saying are not new to us. They've been saying many of these things for the past flotilla missions, where they've asked us, to dock to the nearest port and deliver the humanitarian aid there, and they will take it through. But what is new is, the scale of the smear campaigns that they're taking, specifically on some of the organizers, associating them with Hamas. When from the beginning, we've always made it clear that we are a peaceful, non-violent, civilian-led movement, and our only aim is to open up the humanitarian corridor and break the siege. So these attacks are unlike previous missions, and I think they obviously feel threatened by the scale of it and by the passports on board, because they obviously represent allies and complicit countries. So yeah, I mean, we're just taking it day by day and assessing the risk, but we always knew that this was a risky mission and this was something we would face.
And tell us what you have been experiencing day by day, and when you joined the voyage, if you can just give us a sense of that, and what has it been like? Obviously, you all feel very strongly about this mission. You moved by either personal experiences or just your own humanity. But what has it been like undertaking this dangerous mission, and what have you experienced?
Sure. So, I mean, look, the voyage is split up into different parts. So there's the main fleet, and that fleet was subject to the drone attacks 2 nights ago. There's also a few boats that are hanging back and support boats for strategic reasons. So not all of the boats are together. And today the Greek fleet officially joined the flotilla. So we're trying to keep strong and strategic by maintaining one big fleet, but also some supportive boats on the periphery. Look, in terms of being part of this mission, it's been 3 months coming up. I was part of the global march to Gaza in Egypt, and we started planning this as soon as we got back. So we've been deep into it since then. And as an organizer, obviously, we are more aware of the risks, and we knew this was inevitable. So I guess it's a little bit less daunting, and we were maybe a little bit more prepared than some of the participants were who joined more recently. Yeah, sorry, I forgot the second part of your question.
Yeah, but it was just getting a sense of what have you experienced. We've heard, as you mentioned, the main fleet having experienced drone attacks, explosions, and we did speak to Nkosi Mandela, who had also told us that up until the point that I think when we spoke to him, were they in Tunis or Italy, but he also gave us a sense of just how frightening it is being on board. But now we have Italy and Spain that have sent naval vessels to try and protect the various boats that are part of the fleet. Can you just tell us if there was communication of this, and was it because there was an indication that Israel was not respecting international waters?
Yeah. So look, we didn't actively engage these naval ships and ask them to come on board. That was of their own accord, and I think it was in response to seeing how the Zionist entity and Israel was treating citizens from those countries. Of course, it brings its own risk in that, we want to remain a peaceful, civilian, non-violent led mission, and as much as we appreciate the naval forces into the sea to protect us, we don't want this to turn into a military intervention, because that obviously changes the nature of the mission and can change the nature of how we are responded to.
And that's the interesting part, right? For you to be able to carry out your humanitarian mission of bringing aid to Gaza, you now have a political intervention in order to protect the mission so that it can be successful. As you say, it makes things difficult. It puts you at odds with your stated intention of being a peaceful mission. But do you think that beyond this, given the statements that have come out from Israel by Israeli sympathizers, that you could need more and more physical, political protection.
Yes, and look, we, as much as we appreciate and we need the political and physical protection, we knew that this we would be the ones being protected, because of the passports on board. But what actually needs to happen is those naval forces and the military intervention needs to come and intervene directly in Gaza and directly in Palestine. As it's great that we're attracting them to international waters to protect us, but our ultimate objective is for them to go straight to Gaza and serve where it's actually needed.
And as you say, you are a civilian mission, but ultimately challenging and moral and what you say is illegal, particularly under international conventions, action, the blockade of Gaza. When you were sitting down as organizers and you were coagulating around these points, and I want to focus now on the international conventions and perhaps precedents of support on embarking on this mission, what were the conversations?
Yeah, so I mean, we knew that we would be putting governments in a difficult position here because we're putting people from complicit countries on board, and that was in our mind the only way to force the hand of governments to intervene and actually take action against the Zionist entity. Because South Africa, yes, we took the Israel and the Zionist entity to the ICJ, and a lot of other countries have done symbolic things up until this point. But now we knew that this mission would force those governments to take some kind of action and actually protect their citizens. So yeah, the conversations were around, I guess, the place we would put governments in between a rock and a hard place. Do they maintain?
Are there specific treaties that perhaps that you were looking to, and we've seen, as you mentioned, South Africa's case in the international courts, but there is the UN General Assembly that is taking place now. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa making in his speech during the UNGA debate, saying that it's all very well and good that there is support, but the blockade must end now. And it brings to question the diplomatic moves that must occur immediately, right now, in the next coming days. Any suggestions to some of these regional bodies that would be supporting your mission?
Yeah, look, I mean, the UN is one of them because there's a UN resolution at the moment that we are trying to push. Although a few days ago, the US vetoed the UN resolution to take humanitarian aid into Palestine for the 6th time. So we are definitely hoping to put pressure on the UN specifically, because as much as it's been there to, so-called protect all the nations of the world, it has been acting biasly towards the global north. And I think that would be one of the key entities that we would want to influence in this mission.
So finally, what do you have in mind for the next couple of days? Do you see victory in, ahead of you in your near sight? And should you be successful in your mission, what next?
Look, I think it depends on how you define victory. We know that this is not a silver bullet, and this action alone is not going to liberate Palestine. But yes, we are definitely moving the needle. We are definitely moving towards victory. I think success of this particular mission is one, to allow humanitarian aid in finally after many months. But we definitely plan to continue after this mission, not only with different waves of flotilla missions, but in other kinds of movements as well, other kinds of international direct action. And our ultimate goal is obviously the total liberation of Palestine. No, we don't think that that's going to happen in the next 2 days, but we think that this is an important step to move towards that.
And just one last question, and without obviously compromising your safety, are you able to count in I don't know, distance or percentage, just how far you are on your journey, to let us know how far you are really?
Look, I mean, you can see it on the tracker, so it's not private knowledge and it's not confidential knowledge. It one depends on the weather for the next few days and how fast we can go, because we are a big fleet. We don't leave, the smaller boats behind. So the fleet is traveling a bit more slowly than previous flotilla missions, which was just a couple of vessels. I would say a handful of days, maybe between 5 or 6 days.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us, and that we're able to at least see that you are forging ahead, and we will be keeping in touch with you. Really, really appreciate it. Speaking to us regarding their mission on the Global Sumud Flotilla. Basheera Soomar is a member of the organizing committee for this largest civilian flotilla that is heading towards Gaza to hand over aid and whatever support those who are under siege need. It brings the time to 22.5+9.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.